What's up, guys? The To Love Ru collaboration event dropped today, and as usual, I'll be going over the data mine and giving you my thoughts. The data mine is linked in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. This is the first collaboration Azur has done with a franchise that I actually watched, although it's been almost 10 years since To Love Ru Darkness finished airing. Unfortunately, neither my favorite character Sephi nor my second favorite character Nemesis are in the collab. I will not be elaborating on why. Anyway, let's take a look at their skills. All the new ships come with unique augments, so I'll have to go back and forth between the augments and the ships to explain the entirety of their kits. Starting with Lala, the eldest sister, she looks quite tanky, slightly more so than Porcelain, and has quite a bit of utility, but her damage doesn't seem to be too impressive from what I can see. Her first skill summons Go-Go Vacuum Kun, which sucks in enemies similar to Bismarck's Way's Black Hole. The area in which the summon spawns seems to be a bit further out than that of Bismarck's Way's Black Hole, so it could be useful in the case that the enemy you're fighting stands too far for Bismarck to catch, although it only sticks around for 2 seconds compared to the 3 of the Black Hole, and that 1 second does make quite the difference. Other than that, she also debuffs the enemy stats through both her skills, which will benefit your fleet, though it's difficult to detect. Her damage is just okay, with a loadout that doesn't have the highest efficiencies nor the strongest barrages, but it's not particularly weak either. To summarize, Lala is a pretty tanky ship with useful support for the entire fleet, and decent but not exceptional damage. She's definitely better than Portland in every single aspect, which will be great for new players. Next up is Nana. She has no utility and relies entirely on her damage and bulk to be useful. She's definitely more on the tanky side for a destroyer, and her damage is okay. She's primarily a torpedo ship with her high torpedo stat and torpedo scaling barrages, but I wish she was min-maxed a bit more toward her torpedoes rather than having 125% main gun efficiency. She has a barrage which triggers on main gun shots, as well as no firepower buffs, so sacrificing all her gun damage for a fast gun would make her even more potent. She summons 2 adds from her barrage that fire some weak torpedoes, but they apply a debuff which further increases her torpedo damage. Since she doesn't have the reduced torpedo spread perk, but has regular torpedoes, plus this spread out barrage, on top of her zombie heal, you'll want to use her in campaign and avoid using her for boss fights, where there is only a single enemy, as her torpedoes and barrages will have trouble landing on a single target, and her zombie heal won't be as useful. Next up is Momo. While her loadout is the worst, her barrages seem to be the strongest of the 3 sisters. Unfortunately, 8 shots with a light cruiser gun and 1 gun mount actually takes quite long, so the barrage is not super spammable, but the damage on it is pretty good, assuming that both the 1200 base damage portion as well as the 1000 base damage torpedo portion are both activated each time, although it might be the case that the torpedo barrage is only activated when she falls below 35% HP, in which case it would be pretty mediocre. Her second skill has some minor buffs and healing, but the effects are quite minor and straightforward, so I don't think there's anything worth diving into. That wraps up the 3 Vanguard ships. All 3 of them are decently tanky, which will go quite far in making them solid choices for players progressing through the main campaign, and Lala could potentially have use past that depending on whether or not there will be a situation where her vacuum summon excels over Bismarck's Black Hole, thanks to its slightly different location. Next up is Yami, who changes her barrage depending on whether she targets a light armor enemy or not. This is definitely an interesting design, and I predict that Rune will likely get something similar for her unique augment when that comes out. Her barrage is aimed at an enemy, so she does not require the flagship position, but it is not a single target barrage, as it has a fixed pattern that will cover a large area where it is directed. On top of the barrage being quite powerful, her offensive stats are solid, with 155% main gun efficiency when you have her unique augment, and she's bulky as well. Everything about her kit looks quite strong, and I think she'll be comparable to Owari when maxed out. You can take Yami and the 3 sisters up until campaign chapter 11 without much issue, but in chapter 12 and 13, they pretty much have no anti-air, so you might run into a wall. In chapter 14, where the anti-air requirement is not as high, I think you can form a pretty solid core with the 4 ships, and then toss in Unicorn and another carrier to round out the fleet. Lastly, we have the two elites, Haruna and Yui. They're not powerful by any means, but Haruna throws out a fire extinguisher, and Yui has rulers and handcuffs in her barrages. I don't think they're particularly effective against warships though, so maybe they were isekai'd into the wrong game. As far as the augments go, I already considered them when talking about the ships. They also give the sisters an extra laser barrage when sortied with at least one other sister, and they're also purposely desynced, which is definitely nice to have, as opposed to having all of the beams overlap and then having a lot of downtime. Note that there is pretty much no reason to force yourself to run multiple of the ships together, except running at least two of the sisters for the laser from the augment, but it's not a make or break. Yami in particular will be a very strong SSR battleship just by herself. Lastly, I'll go over the auxiliaries. This first one emits a special light, so it might get style points, but I'll have to wait and see what it looks like after I get it. The next one is a firepower stat bonus, although it seems to be outclassed by the gold Fumo. I wonder if the skill effect actually does anything like making the enemy hitbox bigger, because in that case then it could be very useful in increasing the physical hit rate of your attacks. Next two are auxiliaries that are outclassed by the white shell and SG radar, and their effects don't seem to contain anything too useful. The next auxiliary claims to increase your damage every 20 seconds, by how much I don't know. I would assume it's only going to be 1% every stack, and it'll likely be the best damage auxiliary for destroyers with really bad torpedoes, although it still doesn't really do much. Next up is a slightly different repair toolkit. It's worse overall than the purple toolkit, but it can be upgraded to plus 13, and I believe its healing should stack with repair toolkits, making it likely one of the best options for destroyers when equipped alongside a repair toolkit, but the toolkit should come first. The last auxiliary is a direct upgrade over Cosmic Kicks, making it the third best evasion auxiliary after Repair Toolkit and Beaver Badge. Unfortunately, I haven't really used Cosmic Kicks in a long time, as these days, I try to get away with using as many damage auxiliaries as possible, and even apart from that, there are just so many equipment with useful secondary effects, like the RPG auxiliary or the gold burn, so it's hard to find a use for this. However, it doesn't take much effort, so just make sure you get everything in case it randomly becomes useful one day. One last thing I want to talk about are the skins. I feel like they played it a bit safe. To Love Ru is an anime that could not be aired on TV as is, but the skins make it look like some PG-13 school rom-com. There's a lot of implied stuff and the art is very good, but I feel like it could have been spicier like the Dead or Alive skins in my opinion. My favorite of the bunch is Nana's because the pose displays her curves the best. Anyway, that's it for this update. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.